Hello, well, continuing the simple shoemaking project, so a project that anyone can make a shoe with some simple basic tools. Going to continue doing the stitch up. So I'm just going around here, I'm just using an ordinary wooden slicker and I'm trying to make a little shelf ready for my stitching. So I'm following the sort of measurement line. It gets a bit tricky just here with the toe. And actually that is beginning to sort of do what it needs to do, because obviously the stitching will come around here. So I've got the toe cap here and I thought it'd be fun to have a little bit of design going around the edge. So this is a stamp that I'm using. It's a little bit like a Victorian tile. That's just put a little bit of decoration along there. Okay, I'm just roughing up this area because what I'm going to do is use some glue to stick the toe cap on. So what my sort of sequence will be to put some glue just along the back edge here and along just there. Stitch it down, and then once I'm ready to sort of mould it round, I'll put glue all under this on here and press the rest of it down, and that will give this toe area a bit more stiffness and a bit more body, because there'll be two layers of quite thick leather sort of plywooded together as a glue join as well, so it will give that toe a bit of resilience. On its own I think it would probably collapse a bit too readily. I'm just sort of trying to get the top into position to sew round, and what I've done, just so I don't sort of lose a couple of really basic points, is I've put a couple of stitches each side of the waist, so they go right through the upper, dragging it in and getting it nice and sort of held in the right sort of place. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm using these pincers. You could use any pliers really, and I'm just trying to sort of press down the upper to meet the sole, and I'm trying to do it for the same like ½ inch that I had on the excess around the sole. When you remember I measured around the sole, I put in an extra ½ inch of leather, and then what I'm doing, just when I get it sort of reasonably in, I'm just literally like tacking it with the machine here. So I'm putting in a bit of thread on the outer which will get cut off, but it's enough to sort of hold it in position. If I can keep doing that going round, I'll then hand sew it as a final thing. Now if you didn't want to do this approach, or you didn't have a machine, what you could do is put a little bit of glue judiciously along the seam, clamp it, and then do your sewing. Or you could just do a few more of the little ties that I did. So you just make a couple of awl holes on the outer bit, and then just do a little bit of little knot now and again, just to literally tack it. That's all we're doing here, is just trying to get it tacked into position so that it's sort of roughly where we want it. So I've just been stuffing some glue down the toe, so trying to bolster this toe box to make it a bit more solid. So having got this all roughly tacked into position, I'm going to now walk my dividers as close as I can into that seam, into the edge, to do my stitch marking. And I'm going to walk them down this edge first, the inside edge, and then stitch it with this fairly heavy duty thread. I will then come round and do the other side. Now I'm reckoning, because this is a more open side, it's not sort of caving in like this side. On this side I can probably get a bit more pressure with the pliers and do a final push onto that last. I'll then use one of my awls to make holes and do a saddle stitch going around to hold all of that in. Just in case it's of interest, stitch wise, I'm going to do a 6mm stitch. That seems quite a big stitch to me, but I notice it's what's been done on these shoes. So I've marked my stitches with the dividers, and now I'm going in with a curved awl, and I'm piercing through all of this to get my stitch holes. So my stitching method, basically use an awl to punch the hole through, and then I'm using a little barbed awl here, where I can take a loop of my cord there, my thread. So I'm doing it like easy stitcher style, and then just pull them nice and tight. And that seems to work quite well. So I've got the first bit of stitching in position there. Going to carry on going around. What I'll then be doing is trimming all of this. That's what it looks like from that side. So I've just been sewing around the toe cap now, so that bit's done as well. So getting around there, and I have just started sewing up the heel. So what I did with the heel, I pushed in these two rear bits of leather, trimmed them so that they fit flush, so they literally butt up to each other. And now what I'm doing with the awl is I'm just going in at each side, making a hole through the wall, and then just sewing little stitches to and fro to close up that heel. Now that's not going to be terribly strong, but the reason I'm doing it that way is so that there aren't stitches on the inside that will get damaged by one's heel or rub or be uncomfortable for your heel. So what I'll be doing is, once that's sewn over, I'll be able to put glue on all of this and then attach a heel piece. So that's the back seam just sewn up. I've just hammered it down to get it lying nice and flat. I've burnt the ends over of the bonded nylon thread I'm using, so that sinks it all in nicely, keeps it flush. So I'll be putting this heel cover on. So once again I'm using the Renier Aquilum, which is the water-based glue. Seems very good for jobs like this. Put it on both surfaces. It's Renier Aquilum 315. So I'll let that go off and then I'll be able to join them. I've just pressed this together and I'm just now trying to sort of like hit it into gluing so it's nice and firm, and trying to sort of like manipulate this leather to be following the curve of the heel. And again, these pincers are very good. They've got a nice narrow flat beak, so I can get in there and really start again to try and get this edge manipulated in nice and close in. I'll obviously be trimming it all, so what I can do now is take a knife and basically trim back to that line. So I mean, an ordinary knife will do it. I have a knife here which actually has a bent over tip, a lipping knife, and it's quite useful because it keeps it a bit away from your upper, but it's not necessary. Any modelling knife will do this quite happily. I'm just going to finish off this heel stitch around, so going around just like before and going to use my awl, stab a lot of holes and do the sewing just in the same sort of way. So I'm just using a little hooky awl with a barb on the end to pull the thread through, and then just like a speedy stitcher type awl, feeding it through so it forms the stitch, and pull it nice and tight, and that gives me the stitch as I go around, just the same as before. I'm going to need to, obviously, once the last is out, stitch around here, which I haven't done yet, but that's all stuck and it gives that a bit of rigidity. So that's the bulk there done of the cutting out and assembling for one of the shoes. I need to repeat this for the other shoe, and then I will need to turn my attention to the sole. See you in the next video, and thanks very much for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye then. Thanks.